Okay, part 3. We are using lightning for our ignites now. So part 1 was cold, part 2 was chaos, which was a disaster, and part 3 is lightning. And it is significantly more potent. Very, very happy with what it's doing and how it's working. Um, Part of that is that we are using static strike. Part of it is that we have a better flask setup. It's actually relatively low clicky for Path of Exile. But yeah, let's take a look at how things work. Now, there's a couple of issues, which is I don't have red maps. But remember how I bricked my atlas like a long, long time ago? It should be fine, right? Enfeeble, Fizz. Fizz Reflect does nothing. Bloodline, Critical Strikes. Sounds great. So yeah, let's see how things go. First things first, make sure that you turn in your flask. If you don't turn in your flask, you die. We are not using our flasks after this point. We just let that go on autopilot. These two flasks are used whenever they're full. They get charges when we're being hit. So this is our Blade of Healing. And our health potion is Temporal Rift, if I remember to use it. Let's make sure I didn't have any dumb mods on this map. No dumb mods, everything dies. So this is roughly the same gearing that we had before. Of course, I swapped out the amulet. I have slightly better rings because I didn't have to fix my stats. But yeah, the clear is fine. Oh, let's not test that part, shall we? And on a 5 link that is not optimized, we are doing decent damage. And for reference, 2 levels ago we were struggling in tier 5s that were blue, and now we are running corrupted tier 12s faster than before. In short, oh, I should use the other buttons too. This is much better. So how do things work? We use Static Strike. Static Strike has a couple of benefits. One, it has these little zappy beams. And Static Strike retains the effect of a Warcry. Well, an exerted attack, to be precise. We don't really use Warcries very much. Our exerted attack is Ambush, which means that Static Strike maintains the effects of Ambush. And that means that our Static Strike's Zappy Beams all crit. Because our Static Strike Zappy Beams all crit, they all ignite and they all shock. And that combination is pretty potent. Yeah, so we have massive cooldown recovery speed on our ambush. We have this from the implicit on our boots. We have it from the tree. We have it from quality, and I think that puts us almost at 95 or 100 cooldown recovery speed, which means that we have a pretty convenient and pleasant setup going. Okay, let's see. I don't really know this map very well. I don't know where to find the boss. This is my second red map. The first red map was 2 bosses with Elder and a bunch of other random stuff. Not Elder, Maven. I died once in the arena. Alright, so here we saw actually one of the problems. And this is the next thing I want to fix. This is that if we get stunned right before we make our attack, sadness. Right? Like because you just lost your sweet buff, I think. And worse than that, you now exert the attack with your Warcry. You don't want to do that because your Warcry applies fire damage. Because all our damage is cold damage, lightning damage, not cold damage. We have a couple of big perks due to that. He's already dead. And one of those big perks is Elemental Equilibrium. But yeah, it's working pretty well. We are also using the flask. The flask will shock people near our target. It only counts like the first 10 from a damage perspective, but that means that if we manage to teleport into a pack, which we do all the time because that's what ambush does, you probably just shocked 10 people recently, which means that our Stormfire damage is really good because of it, and the flask is pretty good too. Hey, I guess this is where the boss must be. Alright, so we did our thing. And now we just wait for the boss to do its thing. Woo! I just decided to eat a hit, and that was the end of it. Yep, that was a clean one-shot. Not by me. Survivability is also a thing I would like to improve. Oh, I forgot my buddy. If you don't get one shot, then you can use Temporal Rift, which of course means that you start playing more aggressive, which means you take more damage, but still, compared to where we were with the Chaos version of this build, massive improvement. Way more damage, forgot my flasks, and faster clear. If anything, it's probably safer. Though I have to admit that it looked like I did absolutely no damage to the boss, which is a little bit confusing. So let's go take a look at that again. Does the boss do anything special? No. Attack speed? No, nothing really. Yeah. Other than that, from a gameplay perspective, it is a little Path of Exile-like, right? Because we definitely click very few buttons as compared to what you'd be used to in Path of Exile. Let's be smart and assume that we're gonna do something dumb again. Your button presses are far more meaningful. Alright. Hi. Fantastic. Alright, are you taking damage? He's taking damage. A little slow. But I can't apparently take a single hit from him. Interesting. What does he have going on? Resist elemental damage. Oh, blocks attacks. That's probably what got me. Ooh, interesting. So yeah, one of the problems apparently is that if you are running a ambush setup, blocks attack becomes far more impactful than it was before. Neat. Lesson learned. Alright. So yeah. This was some re-gearing. Switch out the ring. We have some recovery, life recoup on here. We're using the Hion's Fury. We have some accuracy and some life and 26 fire resist on our helmet. We have some strength, 24 strength and 96 life, and crafted resists on our shield. Our boots are good, which give us the cooldown recovery. Our gloves are fine. Gloves are pretty terrible. It gives some resists. Now, because we're playing a Pathfinder, our basic resists are not great until we turn on our flasks, and now we have massive overcapped resists, so not adding as much as you think. Definitely could be better gloves, but the 50% increased damage is pretty sweet. The heavy belt has life, has fire resist, which we don't need the fire resist, so effectively this has life and crafted elemental damage to attacks, and then the implicit of 20% reduced flash charges used. The 5 link, which has accuracy and life. So, and then I did buy this amulet, which is quite nice, because the damage over time multiplier is great. The increased global critical strike chance is not useful. the 37% to global critical strike multiplier, which turns into another 18% damage over time multiplier, is pretty good. It has life, and we crafted attack speed on it and some energy shield. So mediocre-ish gear other than the weapon. The weapon is amazing and the boots are amazing. And the ring is, well, it's a very good version of the ring, but the ring has a fairly narrow range as to what it rolls. Yeah, even the lightning damage is pretty narrow on it. I guess it's not even amazing from what it rolled perspective. Oh, we have the 20%. 12% increased burning damage. But since it caps at 120, I think that having a lower roll there would be fine too. So really the lightning damage with attacks is nice. So that is the update to lightning. We did switch out to Swift Affliction. Before this we used Critical Strike Multiplier on attacks. Let me find this thing. We used Critical Strike Affliction support. Okay, this thing is effectively 20% more damage. So it's kind of a crappy support, which is disappointing. Because this is additive, and this is something where it makes sense to talk a little bit about the tree now that we actually have something that kind of works. So we have Perfect Agony. This has Critical Strike multiplier also applied to damage over time multiplier for ailments from critical strikes at 50% of their value. Apply to damage over time multiplier is additive. Similar to this, 25% to damage over time multiplier for ailments from critical strikes. So this node, from an Ignite perspective, would be equivalent if it said 50% more critical multiplier, 50% critical multiplier, and 40% increased critical strike, right? Because half of the critical multiplier would be turned into this 25% damage over time multiplier for ailments from critical strikes. So we have increased damage multiplied by our socket gems, multiplied by the more multipliers which we get from here, and we get it from Perfect Agony. And I think these guys, yeah, this was also critical strike multiplier. So we have a lot of these more multipliers from both crit and from just the tree itself that they're not adding up as much as you think. But yeah, we have right now what we're doing is we're scaling increased damage, like increased elemental damage. So here's an example, increased elemental damage with attacks. We are scaling via this more multiplier, which is effectively a second stacking version of increased. They don't individually multiply together. And then we have Ignite Speed. We have 20% increased Ignite Speed. So that is another more multiplier. And then we scale negative resists. And for instance, we do it over here from Elemental Equilibrium. And we will probably do it from here by saying that fire exposures you inflict apply an extra -5 to fire resist. So that would make this elemental equilibrium a negative 30%. We have a flask setup to keep up some expensive flasks. This guy is pretty expensive, but has a high duration. We still have some improvements to make there. We have plenty of improvements to make on the character itself. Our life is pitiful. We're running on a 5 link, which is not ideal. Like the sockets aren't even ideal, I believe. And right now I'm finishing flushing out spell suppression. For things that don't one-shot us, the Temporal Rift has actually been a pretty good healing potion. And most of the time we're fine zapping back a couple of seconds, and even if we end up in a bad situation because of a degen or whatever, we have this less shade that I picked up, because it gives us the ability to really mitigate the degen damage that we would start to take. We have increased duration over here if I take it, I would like to take that. And we get it over here for ailments and skill effect. This makes our duration on the static strike far better. So yeah, going to lightning based, massive improvement as compared to where we were before. Is it exactly where I wanted to be at this point? Meh. Is it a good thing to do as a pathfinder? Meh. I think that is one of the main things I'm running into, is I don't think that, you know, although pathfinders can do a lot of things, this might not be an ideal use for it. And seeing where we ended up with the pathing, Elementalist is starting to come pretty close. So it might be very worthwhile to play an Elementalist with this setup. But yeah, this part of the tree is working okay. We need to find some more life, which either is going to come from the melding area of the tree, or we have to get it from the thick skin part of the tree. Thick skin just doesn't feel good when you're playing a Pathfinder because you have so many tools to mitigate your ailments. And a lot of our a lot of these notables are very narrow, right? Nature's Reprisal, you have to be playing attack-based chaos skill to get most of the benefit from it. If you don't have an attack-based chaos skill, it's a 30% area of effect node. I mean, that's not worth it. You have Master Toxicist, which is cool, but you have to play poison. If you don't play poison, it does nothing. Veteran Boyer is useless. And part of the reason for that is that enemies you kill that are affected by elemental ailments gain 100% increased flash charges. When you're killing things, you don't run out of flash charges, right? This 100% increased flash charges is absolutely useless compared to what it was a year ago, because they increase the duration on all the flasks, which means that this is not doing anything really. It gives you 15% extra elemental based upon physical, but that just messes up your elemental equilibrium, which came to your part of the tree. So it gives you 10% pen, which, I mean, what they did to penetration this league is probably not ideal. So this node wasn't great, but right now this is, I mean, it'd be fine as a notable on the tree, but as an Ascendancy node, it's not very good. Master Alchemist, remove elemental ailments when you use a flask. It doesn't give you preventative, you know, it doesn't solve your freeze problem. That's one of the big issues. The other thing is that you're kind of forced into automating your flasks just so they trigger fast enough. Nature's Boon is pretty amazing, although definitely reduced in power as you can get a lot of these things on the tree now. But I still am a fan of this. Nature's Adrenaline is great. Master Surgeon is busted. But yeah, that's kind of why I keep running into this tree, because it doesn't feel as flexible as it used to. Anyway, so yeah, this is a tree. Crit multi, damage over time multiplier, life, fire damage over time multiplier, reduce enemy resistances. It's pretty clean. You know, not quite to where it needed to be yet, but compared to where we were, massive improvement, and it's worth continuing on experimenting to actually fine-tune this into something that is more functional.